I'm feeling embarrassed and angry.
Okay. What's the matter?
Unless I was mistaken, there was a dialogue between Don and this new person that came on. Well, I'm acknowledging my feelings because everything's allowed in this, and I thought I would announce them, and it's okay to be angry and embarrassed. And I'm not certain that young man wasn't here for the non-dual meeting.
Yeah, I was ready to give him the benefit of the doubt because, right, what's the worst that could happen? And he did say the magic word non-duality. So at least he knew where he was, but I guess Don must have wrote something to him. But you know, that's just what was happening, Alice. You know,
Right.
this is what's happening now. You're having a response. But the thing is, the response that's coming up now isn't yours.
Right.
But it is a response.
Yes.
And I want to like apologize to Alice if I did something over here that upset you, and I get what you say. I totally get what you say. Then I know it's all this, and I'm coming from there now, but at the same time, I don't think it would be my intention to have done that, if that makes sense at all. That wasn't my intention. I may have made a mistake. Don't know. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure I've seen him before, but
Oh, no.
And I'm used to those people. But I don't know. So I mean, I guess we could talk about, since we're in this context, Alice has an experience. I did something. If we could talk about that, like what happened, or in the context of non-duality, am I responsible for saying I'm sorry? Did I make a mistake? Is it just her? Does that make sense? So to unpack it for, yeah.
Well,
If that
Don, if I could jump in here.
Yeah.
Maybe we could, there could be another kind of question. Is there a problem?
No, there's no, not in the, no, not in that state of consciousness I'm touching right now. It's not a, boy, that's a great question, man. So I see it as not a problem here unless I drop down into, did I make a mistake?
Well, there's no you to make a mistake or drop down. There's just what happens. But nobody's doing it. And you know, that can't be believed. And that's what the me is attempting to do. It's like, it's actually kind of comical because the me is like, well, prove to me there's no me.
There is a me.
Okay, so well, we said there's no problem, and then now we're saying, well, there is a me. So the me is the one with the problem. So if there's a problem, there's a me, and if there's no problem, then there's no me. So that's
not true.
Not true.
Be,
okay,
there can be a me without a problem.
Okay, well, I mean, I think that's a good way to define things, but I think in this discussion, the way we generally are, talking, in the language of it all, we're pointing to well, there is this thing, me, is the one with the problem. That's kind of the given definition. So I agree that we could define things in a different way, and that could be, a good way to go. But
I've been watching the meetings for several months, and they're amazing meetings, and I'm so glad to have them to watch. Thank you, Michael, for putting it on. They're awesome. So I notice a sort of a vilification of this me. And so it's kind of, there's kind of a vilification of it. And then there's also, that's how it strikes me. There's a me, and the me doesn't know this. And the me always wants to do these things. And then also that's combined with, there is no me. But in my meditation, maybe you'd call it, over this time, I've decided that there is a me. It's just that it's not the society's definition of a me. There's a body, and it has genetics, and there's information that it's receiving and sending out. It's not a problem, but there's a me. And it doesn't interfere with non-duality for there to be a me either, because everything else in the universe is required for a me to exist, except for one thing, and that's the me itself. So of course, there's non-duality is it. There's nothing can exist without everything else that defines it, that it's relative to.
Okay, can I ask you a question, Thomas?
Yes, please.
Are you using the word me as in personal?
As impersonal?
As personal. It's me, it's mine, my car, my house.
No.
So
I
you're
would just say that me is a landing place. And when and we're saying there's no me, we're just saying we're pointing to there's no landing place. Like Don, Michael said, is there a problem? And Don said, well, no, there's no problem until or unless I do something that would, in other words, unless I take a position and I land somewhere, and then that creates a possibility for a problem. So that landing, go ahead.
The me is as real as this phone. So you can say the phone is not real, but there's a body. I can see all your bodies. So how do you explain those? If you say there's no phone here, then okay, I kind of agree there is no phone.
Well,
but as much as there's a phone,
I could see the phone. I've never seen a me.
I see him. I see you right there.
No, you see a me?
Yeah, I do.
Thomas, it's a trick question.
I know it is, and
Sure.
thanks for giving me, and I won't take much more of the platform here, because you all have so many beautiful things to say. But I think that I'll just sum it up by saying that there's the appearance when watching this. I call it a show because I like it. It's like my show that I watch. There's the appearance when watching this show that there's kind of this. It's almost like this kind of villain, the me, and yet it doesn't exist, and yet it does. And I solved that very neatly without there needing to be like kind of like this that happens to your brain when people say there is no me, by saying there is a me. It's just not what the society calls a me. It's picking up phones, throwing them around, watching TV. It doesn't have any problems. It can't do anything wrong. It doesn't. It's what you see here. It's talking. Thanks.
I think it's wonderful that statements can be put out there and they fly by, they come and go, and there isn't, like I was expecting somebody like me to come in and bring in my landing point and state my position and argue my philosophy. And I think it's wonderful to, I was just watching Michael. I thought he's going to come and, you know, say something, and he didn't. And I thought, wow, you know, yeah, it's great.
Well, this message is very simple. It's what's being shared here is that story never really touches, never really affects what never comes and goes.
Did you say story never affects that which comes and goes?
That which never comes and goes.
That which never, right? Yeah, thank you.
It's a beautiful statement. It's like this is made out of Teflon and nothing sticks to it. But it can imagine that it's real, and it can seem like there's a real problem. But now it's just a story. But it can feel real. But it's just always this, because there already is no you. There's just no way around that. And this can appear as a you, as a me, as a feeling of a you and a me. This can appear as anything, but there's only this.
I'm just interested, Peter mentioned something about landing place. Do we have a landing place? Does everybody have a different landing place? Do we all have the same landing place? Or is a landing place just part of the story and the imagination?
Ding, 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 ding.
Right, okay.
Another word for landing place would be a reference point or a hook to hang things on. It's, you know, in order to make statements and put out concepts, there needs to be, you know, reference points, comparisons, things. Yeah, so that's what I was thinking of, you know. And typically, to bring back the famous me term, the me really can't live without that. It needs that, you know. So it can say, yeah, this is wrong, or this is right, or, you know, it's like the oxygen for the me.
So the landing place belongs to the me.
It needs it, yeah.
Yeah, or you could just say that the me is the landing place, the idea or the imagination of a landing place. And then when we're saying there's just this, as some of us have been known to say in these meetings, it's in a way just saying, well, there's just this and not something else, which would be a landing place. So the me is saying, no, there's something else. There's a that, which is this landing place over, you know, against everything else. And there isn't any everything, there isn't any else or everything else. You can't find anything except everything. And but you can imagine something else, and that's that place, that starting point or that position. Like, yeah, oh, okay, there's a position somewhere in all of this. There's a position, and that's me. And that creates a story which seems to be real. We call it real. And then we say, no, it's appearing. It's just appearing, because appearing just is reminding that, no, there isn't anything actually getting established here. There isn't any position being taken or anything being,
Asserted.
yeah, asserted, limited, anything, yeah, like that. That's just all, yeah.
So could we say, when we refer to everything as this, could we say that this, in other words, or a phrase for this is no landing place?
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing to say, yes.
That would be helpful for me. Oh.
Yeah.
Use the dreaded word me. That would be helpful. Here.
No, you didn't, Faith. That's the whole pointless point of this whole, really.
There was never a faith that was a landing.
There isn't actually see, the illusion is that there's somebody there inside that body speaking, and then we pause, and then someone in another body in this speaks. But no, that's not actually, that's an imagining. There's just this, and it's speaking. It's sharing right now. It's telling its stories, and it's listening.
There is a body speaking.
At a position? Are you making an assertion, Thomas, that that's the correct view?
That there is a body speaking. I think
Yes.
that there's a body speaking in the same way that there's a phone in my hand. I
And
think,
so if somebody said there is no body speaking, then they would be wrong.
no, I think that I'd get into a discussion with them about the phone. I'd say, is there a phone that exists? And if they said no, I'd say, oh, well, that's interesting. Maybe that's true. Let's explore it. But to the extent that there's a phone, then I assert that there is a body speaking.
I just noticed that I tend to react when somebody says, this is how it is, or this is that I immediately, it triggers me in a sense that I want to argue, you know, that I want to make a counterpoint. And that has gotten me in many, many discussions and long nights, you know. Now I sleep more.
I think what's occurring to me is that the thing that I see as me is very much like this phone. Just a phone. It doesn't worry about its mortgage payment, doesn't have problems. It didn't cause it, you know, it caused, like, look at that. Like, it caused a noise. I cause things to happen the same way this phone causes, this eye. It's just like the phone. It's no different than the phone. There's no spirit residing in there that's
There a conviction behind that? Are you convinced?
I am playing, because sometimes when there's discussions about the me, it's like somebody pulled the rug out from underneath you, and you're floating in air, like there is no me. And then I think, okay, what is it? There's a body that was born, and it has DNA. It has DNA, so it's got like kind of like onboard programming, like I guess they call that ROM, like it's burned into the chip, and then it's got programming coming into it during the time this body is doing what it does. And so it's talking here as a function of all that stuff. So I'm playing with my, that's what seems logical to me as I've played with it.
Uh-oh, but you're definitely in the wrong room, because this room,
Hey,
this is not about logic. If you're still interested in logic, I would, yeah, this is not about logic. It's not going to help you. This meeting is not about knowing.
you know, Ellen said something last week that I thought was really interesting. I'm not quoting him, but he said something like, kind of like, people want to feel better. And yeah, there's no one here. And I say that too, but people want to feel better too. So all of us probably have means to feel better. I watch this show to feel better. Most everything I do is to feel better. So what I said here, my conjecture about what the me is, that's all designed to make me feel better.
That's all fine, but you're not doing any of that.
That I would agree with. Nobody's doing anything. There's a body speaking.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things that occurs as is authority. Like just listening to the dance of any ideas, there's authority. And also, I mean, this will probably sound irreverent, but like the degree to which, say, Nkosi looks like an authority in some way or another, is the degree to which someone else saying something that's opposed, theoretically, apparently opposed to what Nkosi presents. That's also authority that objects to it. And it's authority talks about at some point of view. And of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with authority either, except there isn't any. There's nothing wrong with that either, but there's no authority. There's no special person that has the power on the market. But it's fun to see like the reactions and the responses, like just the dance.
Authority as in someone that has so much expertise that whatever they would say would be absolute truth, and they could prove it to anybody that would question it. To me, it's an extension of the standpoint or the position or the landing place. It's all the same. It's the idea that there is a separate self here, and that has a mind, and that mind, can apply logic, and then there can be argument and so on and so forth. I like the concept or the recognition of, I agree with you, Maureen, about authority. It's like, which teacher does the seeker follow, and which teacher has the authority to teach the right belief system.
Well, Peter, and I'm not sure if I'm completely following you, but what I noticed here was that it was authority that wanted to respond back. It wasn't no one. It wasn't nothing. It was like, hey, that's not what these ideas are about. I mean, that's what I noticed here. And I also think that there's a way to actually say a different set of words without having a me present. I just was noticing it was my own, it was the me's authority. It was like, hey, who are you to say this or to say that? And it wasn't like I agreed or disagreed with anybody. I mean, who does that? You know, who's doing that? Like Michael would say, no one. I mean, there's no.
Yeah.
That's how I understood where you were coming from, and that's exactly, it's a point of interest to me because that's what I notice, you know, that the reaction to authority requires that there is an authority, an assumed or imagined authority to react to an authority.
What do you mean when you say the me?
Thomas, are you asking me or just?
Yes.
Well, one of the traditional ways that people define the me is basically seeking energy. It's anything in the configuration, the self-centered configuration that thinks anything needs to be different than it is. So it's seeking, and it's also knowing, as Michael said, like knowing as a kind of currency, knowing to get somewhere or to get something or to be someone.
So, and that me is also part of this.
Well, see, I really, one of the things that resonates here is the me is real and not real. I mean,
How is it, how is it possible for something to be not real?
I think that's a fantastic question. And it doesn't get answered on the level of the mind or word. Like
Well,
what
if it's being said, if it's being said, it seems like it would be explainable. I think that something can't be not real.
You know what I love too is I noticed somewhere in some question, someone said something about, was asking somebody about the me, or, you know, or what stays and what goes if the quote unquote imaginary me actually, whatever happens there, whatever words people want to use. And the person responded, well, how do you get to Elm Street doesn't disappear. And I really just love that as a kind of a practical, like when you were saying your phone and stuff, I'm not understanding hardly anything anyone is saying here. So I don't mean to like say that I understand where you're coming from, but I kind of liked it when you said, well, the phone, you were somehow just pointing out the phone as similar to the me. Is that right?
It was, yeah. That seems like the phone and the TV remote, they seem very closely related. I don't mean to step into the logic realm, but they seem pretty closely related. And then I realized that really me and the phone and the remote were all pretty much the same.
See, I think that's like where's Elm Street? Yeah.
I just wonder what people mean when they say the me here.
Oh, I can hear the me means somebody that an entity living in a body that has a mind who makes sense of things and understands things and aspires, wants to feel better, you know, and argues points. I would say that's part of how the me operates.
Is it?
No, for me, I'm not saying, I don't know what the me
There's
is.
no,
for
but
everybody else.
there's no me to operate in that way. That's that thing, that series, whatever those things that you're saying are that are happening, or that, like, what were some of the things you said, the me, like like Maureen said something like like something kind of like the me is what sees problems. So we all know that there's nothing to see a problem. There's a body, there's thoughts, there's speaking. So what do you mean when you say the me?
The me is the sense of division. The me is the sense of separation. The me, that's how it was experienced here, was I'm here and there's a world out there, and excuse me, and that didn't feel good. And it was only with, you know, hanging around Nkosi, writing a book with Nkosi, it's, you know, it's going to rub off. And I could just see how everything was beautiful. There was just no, and I knew a me couldn't do that. A me is going to judge if there's a me. And it turns out that it doesn't matter, because the me is this too. So if there's a feeling of a me or a feeling of separation, it can only be this.
Maybe that's what I'm here for. I'm sticking up for the me because it must be beautiful too, right? That's what Don's always saying.
Defense of the me.
So that's why it's sometimes said that everything is beautiful, not because it benefits me or because I like it. Everything is beautiful because it's this.
You know, Thomas might have a point, and I'm with Peter, because when he first said it, I was like getting ready to like sort of launch into a lot of explanation about why there's no me. But then I started to look up, I've been sitting here looking up the definition of the word me. The definition of the word me is it refers to the person speaking or writing. There's a lot of other stuff that goes with that as a preposition, but that's really what it is. And technically, there's a body, it's speaking, it's writing, it's doing stuff, right? But you could also then say the body or the now or the this. Like me is just a word.
Joe,
What?
let's get to the bottom of it though. Here's the question. That's fine as story. That's a beautiful story. Is that suffering? Is there suffering there? Is that believed? Because yeah, you can use me as a story. You could go to a play, watch a movie, and it's beautiful. But as soon as I think it's real, and that's what this is, neither real nor unreal. And here, I'll just say a few words about that. Real and unreal doesn't give you anything to work with. Because you can't say it's real, so there's nothing really there, but you can't say it's not there and there's nothing there. So you don't.
But I think what I was getting at was that it's just a word, because what I heard Thomas also say, unless I'm interpreting this wrong, is that the body, the me, is no different than the phone. Stuff comes through the phone, on the phone, in the phone, around the phone. It's not the phone, right? If I'm understanding that right. So it's basically like, just to put it into our language, well, I don't know if I'm going to put it into our language, but to put it more into our thought, our general thought process. When Thomas was talking about that, that is not real, because right now, all that is a memory. And now the thing I just said a second ago, that's a memory. Right. And the thing Michael said a minute ago, that's a memory. Like it, all we have is right here, right this. That's the intangible. And I think what Thomas was pointing to is the body being the transmitter, like a phone is a transmitter, and we just use the word me for it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that and I also was just asking people what they meant when they. But as far as what I said, yeah, that's what I meant.
So the transmitter is not the writer or the speaker, as Joe said, was the definition of me. So the transmitter is just this, without a location there, without a starting place, or without an authority, as Maureen was talking about. There's no author. There's no one speaking, writing, doing. So that's what I think we're getting at here.
And I'll chime in a little bit that when you think of me, that's the individual or the person, which are both one when everything's wholeness. So that's a separation.
Another word that comes to mind, and Michael already hinted to it earlier, is identity. It's when something is like seeing itself as separate from everything else and assumes a separate identity and then defines that identity and puts the label me on it.
That's wholeness too, though.
Mhm.
And you can
Yeah,
have an identity that is wholeness, right? So, and I have a comment, which is, now this is just my opinion. It feels like it's getting very complicated in a way. When I see it, it's so simple in a way that if there's a me that wants to feel better, that's suffering or seeking, that's this too. So why not just leave it at that? I feel like we're talking so much about the me is this, the me is that, the me could be this, the me could be that. How about the me is this? And if the me is going to do certain things like meditate that makes the me feel better, or Michael, you're spending more time with Nkosi and you're feeling a more beautiful experience, it's perfect. So that's my 2 cents on this. It just seems like it's getting so complicated with positions and no positions and the me and the not me. It's just everything is this. That's what I've been hearing for the last year or two. And if the me wants to feel better and meditating makes the me feel better, beautiful.
Alan, who is arguing the opposite? Who says that it's not okay?
I don't know. I'm just simply expressing what I've been listening for the last 45 minutes and off and on the last year or two about everything. Is not even an argument, just what people are sharing. And I just made a statement that it feels like it's getting very complicated when the Tao and beingness and the flow and wholeness is very, very simple, right? The tree growing out right now, there's not a lot of complication to a tree or a plant growing or a hawk flying in the air. There's not a lot of complication. Very, very simple. And I just feel like, again, I'm just sharing. I'm not
Right. And everything that you say is this too.
absolutely.
That's the thing about all is this. The mind can't do anything with it. All is this is way too simple. All is this doesn't give you anywhere to go.
And if you're going to have somewhere to go, you have to have a starting place. You don't have a starting place, then how can you go anywhere?
Alan, one time I heard you say that you said something about we could be sitting here in silence. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you remember that? Like, yeah, I think that's been a little bit of a theme of yours, that of course silence is near and dear, but to me, this is a show and a really great show. It's like one of the only shows I watch. And so something's got to be I mean, something's got to be a show where it's not everybody silent here. I mean, it could be, maybe a silent show would be good. But you're saying we're diving pretty far into the me, and it's too complicated. It's kind of what the show is about, right? Like I watch it every week. I'm like, wow, look what Alice said, or look what Faith said.
Yeah,
I'm like, I wish I was there. I would have said this.
but Thomas, but it's very, because what can the me do with nothing? That's what's being pointed to, is there's just nothing appearing as everything. That's the simple message here. This is nothing appearing as Michael talking and Thomas nodding. But there's the me can't do, if there's just this, there's not, I'm out of a job.
Well, I get into trouble when I hear that there's nothing to do, and there's nothing to do, and yeah, and it's being done. I get into strife because I observe somebody in pain and distress, and with, I suppose it's a judgment, but I see somebody in pain and distress, and I think they need support.
Mm-hmm.
So do I just do nothing, or what do I do? Like, how
Well,
much do I do? Or what?
Luckily, dear Faith, you've never had to worry about that your entire existence. Nobody's ever done anything.
Yeah. So you've never put on these. You've never put on these meetings.
There's no real separation. So whatever's doing anything is doing everything.
So how come we benefit by your efforts to make up a Zoom call?
Well, this is one of the few places where the spotlight is put on the story. You know, most meetings you go to, 99%, you go have at it. Everybody's entitled. But here it's freedom from, because it became unbearable here. Like the identification as a me was so painful.
Yeah, I get that, but I'm just wondering why surely you must make some sort of effort and some choices to hold these meetings for the benefit of other people. And how
Nobody
did
makes
that,
any choices. There's no
Well,
one to make a choice.
well, that's what I'm asking. How does these meetings happen?
I
If-
insisted there was no me when that there is a me when I came on here, and again, I don't know anything, so. But I do also recognize that there's no one to make a choice. There's a me, but none of us is making any choices. We're just falling and going up in the air and stuff.
So how come Michael has, the apparent Michael has conducting these Zoom meetings for us to all benefit from? What happened to make that happen?
You're asking why does anything happen?
I don't know. I think I'll give up. I have a granddaughter that's in pain, and I think I could do something to help her. And when I come here, I think maybe I won't do anything, and maybe I'll just do nothing.
And doing nothing is still doing. Now you're doing nothing. So don't worry about that.
Thank you, Dan.
Good evening,
Nkosi.
Nkosi. Welcome.
Hi, good evening,
Fade us
everyone.
out, Nkosi.
Nkosi, if you wouldn't mind, could you say a few words about how story doesn't affect that which never comes and goes?
Yeah, the story, you know, there's a backdrop and then there's a story. But what is seen here is that what's a backdrop and the story are just one, you know. So really, if the story seems to happen, really, this doesn't mind. Doesn't mind the story because it's just an expression of that which doesn't move, doesn't go anywhere. So everything is beautiful. All the appearances in this are beautiful. This, as it is, accepts every aspect of itself because it's the only thing there is. There's nothing outside of this. There's nobody outside of this already. So every or what seems to be happening, it doesn't affect this. It doesn't touch this because there's only this. So yeah, everything is beautiful. Everything is beautiful. Yeah, at times this may happen to play with a concept, you know, play around with concept. But everything here is just okay because it's going nowhere. There's nowhere to go. There's no distance to cover because everything is already what is. It's already this. Every movement, every thought, every sensation, every question, every answer is already what is appearing as that. So this doesn't mind the story because the story is already this. So what seems to be an individual who is a doer, who wants to know, who wants to get to this, can only be a dream appearing in this. But when the dream seems to end, nobody wakes up. It is seen that it has always been this. There was never a dreamer. This was just totality appearing as that. So nobody wakes up. So everything is okay, everything is beautiful. Because everything is already an expression of everything, of this, of what is. This as it is already wordless. So there is no word that can really describe what this is. This is unknowable. And there is nobody here who knows anything. There's just this. And what seems to be a you who's living life is already an imagination appearing in this. There is no real you who's separate, who's living life, who's striving in life, trying to fix this and that. You know, there's just nothing there. It's just an expression of that which can never be seen, can never be known, can never be held in view. So nobody can get this. Nobody can know this because there's only this. And this isn't a thing that can be pointed to. Because even that which seems to be pointing is already this. The pointer and the pointing and what is being pointed to is just totality appearing as that. There's nothing outside of this. There's nobody outside of this already. So this doesn't mind. Any question may arise, any argument may arise, any frustration may arise. It just doesn't mind because it's just this expressing as that already. So this as it is already effortless and obvious to itself. That which seems to be making an effort can only be an appearance in this. And an appearance in this is also an expression of this. So there's no separation here. There's no dividing line. So there may seem to be as well an imagination arising in this that seems to say, and Nkosi is talking, I'm hearing Nkosi, but now I don't get this and that. It's just an imagination. There's nobody there. And there's nobody there to get anything, to know anything. There's just this. So everything is okay. Everything is beautiful because everything is already totality, wholeness, spaciousness, appearing. So there are no different people. There are no people. There are no human beings. There's no man or woman here. It's just totality expressing. And there is no experiencer, separate experiencer here. It can only be totality, what is experiencing itself. Experiencing itself as Michael, as Charles, as Alice. So there is no real Michael, no real Charles, no real Alice. It's just totality expressing as that. So what seems to be the knower of things is already not there. There's just this, and this can't be known. This is beyond any description. This, as it is wordless. It doesn't require any word to be spoken for it to be what it is. You can call it stillness. emptiness, nothing. Doesn't matter. This is already worthless. This doesn't mind the words. And the words can't touch this. Anything that may be spoken here, may be arise, can never really touch this, can never really change this, can never really move this. Because those are just an expression of this. Yeah, that's what comes up here.
Any last comments or questions before we close out this evening?
Well, again, just to thank you. Sorry, Alan, right after me. It's just a thank you. A thank you. Started off this with a little rocky stuff, and I felt I was the cause of that. So I've been processing that the whole time, and just loving this conversation and loving that people can say what they want pretty much, and whether other people agree or not. And it's just lovely to be here. And I actually dropped from my head into my heart, or that's what it felt like. And way different looking from what I'm calling the heart. Way different when I dropped the trying to understand. And so for me, that's like really huge. And then Nkosi's talking and my heart's opening, and it's like, is this magic or what? You know, what are you know? It's like when you talk Nkosi, is like magic or something over here. I don't know. I'm really appreciative. And again, I have to say, you know, to Alice, yeah, I've already said it, and I texted her to sorry, and if whatever, and I just want you. Well, even just the apparent me here, whatever, even if there's no problem. Okay, that's true. That's true. And in this imagination, I am sorry, and I do mean it. And I just want you to know that. Yeah, I'm done. Alan, I'm sorry.
Well, you stole my thunder, because speaking of apologies, I wanted to apologize to Leighton last week, because I think I got a little rude and defensive. And
No, there's nobody here to apologize to, buddy.
okay.
It's all good.
Beautiful.
Lovely to be here. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks so much for coming. We love and
Nkosi.
appreciate each and every one of you. Nkosi, no words. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Have a good week.